Hi everyone, Bert from Seasoned Gaming again, and today we're doing a different kind of video. Now in the past we did upgrade batteries to the PlayStation 4 controller. We also kind of did a shell replacement as far as the front cover, and the whole point of replacing the battery in the past was because the standard PlayStation 4 controller, and this is the first generation one, only comes with a 1000 milliamp hour battery. Now if you have an older controller, you've kind of put some time into it, that only lasts about 2 to 3 hours. If you get them brand new, they are claimed to be about 6 hours. I've never been able to get 6 hours out of a PlayStation 4 controller, even when it's brand new. So what we did is we upgraded it to a 2000 milliamp hour battery, and that ended up being kind of not a very good battery. It was kind of a cheap one. We did a video on it. The main point of that video was just to show you how to replace the battery. Well, today we are going to be putting a proper 2000 milliamp battery in here and refreshing the controller a bit. Now over time, when you take the original controllers apart, these bumpers and these triggers, I should say, get really weak if you don't take them apart properly. Now when we were first doing this, we did mess up kind of one of the triggers, and it has kind of affected the responsiveness of these triggers when playing. So we're going to refresh that. We're also going to refresh the ribbon cable on the controller. Now the ribbon cable connects the two of them together, and it has kind of gone faulty over time to where this light does not turn on when it's charging, and sometimes it doesn't even charge properly. So overall, today we're going to be giving this controller a big refresh. We're going to be showing you how to do each one of those steps. It might be useful for you and something you are experienced. And we'll also link the battery that we're going to kind of talk about. So let's talk about it right now. This is a PKCELL battery. Now this was a little bit larger than the standard battery that comes in here, so there's a tiny bit of modification to the shell of the controller. This is a 2000 milliamp battery, and let me see if I can get that to focus. So this is 2000 milliamps. This PKCELL is known for being one of the better batteries for the PlayStation 4 controllers. Now one thing that's important is this little piece right here. Let's see if I can get this to focus, and I'll try to focus it a little bit, but let me get this out of the way. And if I can get this to focus. So this little piece right here only works on the first generation controllers. The new generation controllers have a smaller piece, and this does not work really well for those. So if you are looking to make this upgrade and you have one of the newer controllers, you do want to get this piece into the newer piece. So it's kind of a pain to do that. Make sure you take a look at that before you purchase, or if you purchase this battery, what you're doing. I did mention the ribbon cable. This is the ribbon cable that connects the controllers to the pieces, and it actually charges it, gives you the light, everything you need on there. It will also work in other places as well. And then here I mentioned the little triggers that you do want to refresh over time. These little pieces on the original controllers go bad, and they get kind of worn, and they're not as responsive. Now when you're dealing with controllers over and over, these tiny little pain in the butts do go bad over the time. So these have been kind of refreshed. These are brand new. If you're kind of curious how much all this stuff costs, this is a bag full of them. And it comes with little springs and everything inside of them. Paid $1.20 for this ship from China. I always talk about you have to be patient when you ship from China. Might be useful for you. Battery cost me $11 on eBay from a reputable seller, so make sure you're doing that. I will link the seller if you're interested in that. And then the ribbon cable, which if you take your controller apart often or if you're modifying it, this can break really easy. This cost me 75 cents shipped. Got here in about a day and a half from New York, and I'm here in Texas. So really easy to replace these. So let's get started on tearing this apart. If this is your first time watching this and you've never taken a controller apart, the original PlayStation controllers have a Phillips. They're really small, so you might want to find a smaller screwdriver, kind of like this one. There's 4 different points, so let me go ahead and do this, and this will be fast forwarded. Okay, so really easy. Those 4 pieces are taken out. Now one thing I do recommend when taking apart your controller is have something to place your screws into. This is a camera lens cover that I'm just going to go ahead and put all my screws into. These things are really easy to lose, so just, best practice, just put that right there. I'm going to move this out of the way so we have that. Now the original PlayStation 4 controllers are kind of a pain to take apart, and let me show you what I mean. You can't just yank this off because then you'll tear these triggers apart, and that's one of the main reasons we're replacing these. So what you have to do is break the bottom, and what I mean break is like break the seal, not really break the controller, on both of these. And then what you want to do is when you lift, you want to lift this way. You want to lift towards that way. Now when it starts coming apart, you'll hear the pop. And then you want to lift in that direction, because if not, you will tear these screws apart. So now you can see it's getting loose at the top. Take that part, make sure you come over it. Once again, I'm pushing up to make sure that that trigger does not pop out. Now it may still pop out. It is very common if you do that. If you do that, you have not broken it or anything. Here we go, up, and here it did it anyway. So here you can see the trigger has kind of come off, and that's mainly probably because this is faulty to begin with. So if you follow the normal step like the way you should, there shouldn't be a problem. And let me pop this out. It's probably stuck up here, and there it is. So it popped. We are replacing these anyway, so that's one of the only positives here with this situation. Here you can see the screw on the inside has, not screw, the little spring that's in here has fallen in. We're trashing that anyways. As a matter of fact, let me get the other one off, and this is how easy these come off. So literally pops, and there it is, it's off. And that you gotta make sure these little springs don't fall inside the guts of the controller. Here's the ribbon cable. Remember, this has been taken apart a number of times. Here's the 2000 milliamp battery that ended up being not very good. And here's the ribbon that we're gonna replace in just a second. So first steps that you're gonna do is take apart the battery, or I should say unplug the battery, and it literally comes out that quick. So if you are simply doing just a battery replacement, you know, put the new one in, plug it in, you're done, and put everything screwed back together, and you're done. That's how quick it is to replace a battery on a PlayStation 4 controller. Now with this new battery, one thing you can see here is a difference in size. So this is going to be a little longer, so there's a tiny bit of modification. It seems to be a little bit thinner, or if not, maybe the same size. I'll kind of show that to you there. But these, some people have mentioned they need to do a ton of modifications. We're not going to do that much. There's one little piece that we're going to break on the carrier of the battery. Now this is the one that we didn't end up being very good. You notice this is 2000 milliamp batteries, ended up being worthless. It charges and lasts about 15 minutes and then it's done. So I'm going to get rid of that. Actually, let me pull this back. So I did want to mention the controller ports here. The same pieces here. You want to make sure that you are seeing those. They do plug into the same port. Some people will save this piece and use other batteries. I've seen people even use cell phone batteries that last a long time for the PlayStation 4 controller. We're not doing that. We're buying one specific. Make sure that your connections are the way it should. So you also want to make sure they line up the same way. So if I line these two together the same way, make sure you have the right colors going in. So I have red and black lining up the exact same way on the cables. If not, you're going to reverse it and you'll burn the motherboard. Potentially you don't want to do that. So when I plug this in, I will mention the colors that are being lined up here. So let me put this to the side for now. Let me go ahead and unplug the ribbon. I'm going to be replacing this anyway. Some people don't, they leave it on the whole time. I'll show you the modifications. So now you have the two pieces of the controller shell, I guess you call it. So this controls, the reason we're replacing this is because it's faulty on the inside. This controls the charging and also controls the light to the battery. Those are the main pieces that you deal with there. We're going to take this apart. When we look at the shell that has everything, this is the main piece that usually gets modified. So let me pop this out. This is really easy. By the way, this little piece is the reset button and it flies out fairly often. So just move that. Going to put that in our tray with screws so that doesn't get lost. And this piece literally pops in and out. So this is the carrier for the battery. Show this really quick. The standard batteries fit in no problem, nice and snug. There's a little carrier piece that plugs on there. These bigger battery that we're upgrading to does not fit in there super snug. You'll see that it kind of is popping out. Now the main pieces that people mention you have to modify for this are this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece. Now some people have a Dremel and they will simply Dremel these away and you're good to go. I'm not going to do that. I've kind of done some test fitting and I've done some research on this and I'm only going to break this little piece off. So let me show you how easy this is. I'm done. I've modified the controller now. I've ripped this little piece off. So now this sits a lot nicer. That little piece is not blocking it. It's not fitting perfectly snug, but it should fit just fine for what we're trying to do. Now this is now done. I'm going to put this aside and let's get to work on the rest of it. So moving the shell out, we're going to replace these pieces and mainly this ribbon. So to do that, there's two screws, 1 and 2. Okay, those screws have come off. This piece is one, this piece is the other. Now what these do is these kind of stop. It's kind of a protector for this board. Some people at this point will also change the color of this piece, so when you turn the lights on, it's a different color. We're not doing that. We're once again simply replacing the ribbon. So I'm going to simply pop this out. This old ribbon is done. We don't need it anymore. We have our new ribbon here. So this is kind of tricky. You have to come at it from a specific angle. I turn my controller this way, and I'm simply going to plug this in with the actual pieces of it going in. Let me get in there. Okay, not too bad, pretty easy fit. All you do is do the reverse of what you did a second ago. So now that is connected. Going to place this piece in here. You'll notice there's these teeth that kind of pop out from each side. Make sure you simply plug that in. Nice and snug here. So now everything is about to be nice and snug on both sides. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is put the screws back in there. Okay, so the back shell is now ready to go and to be plugged into the main motherboard. Before we do that, let's go ahead and get everything else nice and ready to go. So the battery will simply, actually let me pull that back. The battery will simply fit in here nice and snug once we're done. One thing I do like to do before I even get to the battery piece is get the triggers set up properly. So the triggers are kind of a tricky thing. Let me show you how this works. So these little rubber pieces is what makes contact with the controller and the trigger in the motherboard. So these little pieces, so your actual trigger, and let me show you the old piece. So this is R2. You literally want to line it up and pop, okay? Now the little springs, you have a little rail, I guess you could call it, that line up on the inside here. You can kind of see, if I can get the camera to focus here, let me get this out of the way so this focuses. If I get really close here, rail right here will be the spring where you're going to lay it down, and I'll show you that. On the actual controller, there is a little rail as well. So it's right here. This little rail is where your little spring will go. You have the both thing on both sides. You will simply line them up. So before you put those in, make sure these little rubber pieces are lined up properly. You can kind of see where the contact points are, and let's put those on. So here we have the new L2 and R2, and then we have the brand new springs as well. So let's put the R2, make sure you line them up right. So R1 and L1 over here. So let me get my tiny little spring, and these can be a pain. These can be very finicky because all the pieces are really small and they will frustrate you. So make sure to take a deep breath before putting these on. And you simply want to line everything up, and you will see these fit in just fine. So let's see if they, okay, so there's one right there. You want to simply double check that it is hitting the point properly. There you go. There's one little piece there. Spring is good to go. And here is, oh, that's the old one. Other spring. Once again, this is L2. You want to make sure you are putting it on properly. Follow the rail that you have there. Put it on. We're hopefully going to do this on the first try. Oh, it's already kind of getting misaligned. So for some reason, I personally have issues with the L. One thing that you can do is you hold the spring in place, move this over as far as you can, and hold it while you slide it in. So as you put this in, come on, first try. Whoa, got it. Okay. So we've got both of our triggers in. Now you can somewhat test these. You can't test them too much here because the tension of being put on the other piece of the shell is what holds them in place. So this is probably the main faulty design for the original PlayStation controllers. Now this has been fixed on the second generation of controllers, and it's what kind of drives the new controllers to be easier to be taken apart. So let's put the rest of it on. Gonna put the shell on. Before you forget, done it before, you want to put the reset button properly back into the carrier for the battery. This simply slides in. and pops in place. So let me get this cable out of the way. So that'll pop there. There's one pop. I want to make sure you got everything lined up. There we go. So there are two places in the back here. You have the piece that attaches to the motherboard in the very back, and you have these pieces that line up on the motherboard. So this piece and this piece has a hole in the motherboard. Slide that in, it should pop in. So battery, I'm gonna move this out of the way. I'm gonna wait till the last second to plug it in, because many times you'll plug it in and it'll turn on your PlayStation when you're doing a video like this, or whenever you're trying to put everything back together. Let me get everything going here. So this piece is now gonna plug into the motherboard. Now this is brand new, so it should be relatively easy for it to read properly here. So let's see. I'm gonna take a close look to see where the actual teeth are. Okay, so the actual teeth are gonna go on the inside. And let me plug this in right now, hopefully first try. There we go, went in no problems. So we have that piece together and we are just about done. Hopefully everything, oops, this is already moving. Okay, you are moving already. You don't need to be moving. I hate when you move. And you are moving too. So they do kind of pop in, folks. You do just want to make sure you're careful with these things because they're very fragile. Once again, the first generation PlayStation controller is not the best engineered. Okay, so we're going to plug the battery in and we're done. We're going to put everything back together after that. It can be finicky when you're putting everything back together, but you know, we're going to try our best here. So I did mention before that I will talk about the color. So if you're getting a different PKCELL battery and you want to kind of know how this fits in. So when you plug the battery in, right here it's got kind of a guiding raised piece of plastic that'll guide back into the controller when you're plugging it in. That is going to go on the top. So the way this will connect is the plug itself, the red or positive cable will be on the right side or the north side. The black or negative cable will be on the bottom side or south side, depending on how you're looking at it. So as I plug this in, you will see it just fits in, no problems. Okay, now comes the complicated piece. I've got the triggers on, I've got the ribbon on, I've got the battery, I've got the back shell, everything connected. Now this can be a real pain because sometimes your triggers will get stuck in the bumper when you try to push it and they'll pull away, and when you put everything together it won't work. Sometimes the ribbon likes to get caught up, sometimes the battery likes to get moved around and even fall while you're putting everything together. There is a best way to do this, and let me kind of show it to you. So you want to kind of place this on top. Make sure that these pieces are now in place with the trigger. Now at the bottom, I'm going to put my fingers right below here. And let me just simply, you can see I did kind of put it in there. And at this point, everything will start to kind of fall in place. So that moved in, and you are done. So that is the way this should work. Now let's go ahead and test this, fingers crossed. And there you go, battery did turn on. That means we are good to go. At this point, all you need to do is screw everything back together and you're done. Now this should take you around, I don't know, 15 to 30 minutes depending on your, I guess, knowledge on this stuff. You can test your triggers to see how they're doing. These are super tight now. I'm really happy that I was able to kind of refresh that. Button it all up and you're done. So after that, folks, you have a brand new battery that should last you probably around 12 to 14 hours is what we're hearing from estimates if it does work properly. Our last one didn't work as good as we thought it would, but this is a name brand that is kind of guaranteed to work. So I will list that seller on eBay on the actual description. And hopefully you like this video, guys. We have a working, upgraded, original controller. If you can avoid these controllers, these are the kind of the original ones. I would. The newer ones, there is some battery upgrades you can do on them because you're still not getting a long battery, which is kind of an unfortunate piece. But this has been refreshed. I have this little, you know, wannabe carbon fiber piece. It looks kind of cool for the most part, but I do like what I have here. Anyways, if you like what you saw, folks, make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any questions on getting it all back together, it's not super easy the first couple times, but after you've done it, leave them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.